Okay, so in this video, we're going to go over all of the different methods that we can use to monetize our music or around our music or utilizing our music as content or even our knowledge of creating it. So a lot of these concepts will involve you using your music and maybe building some content around it that leads back to it. So a really important thing is to think about when selling and promoting your music as a product. A really great way to get people to interact with it is to give them something of value first. Now, a way to do that used to be to give a free download to one track from an album. However, there's been sort of this shift where people generally won't be too interested in a download now unless they are going to use that for a specific purpose. So this works well if your audience, for example, are video creators and you're letting them use that music for free in a video. A download works really well for those. If a big part of your audience are DJs and live performers, a download's really useful for them. It's got value. However, the majority of listeners now will stream the track. So the free download, especially on something like mobile, doesn't have as much value. So a way to bring the value first is to give them some kind of use around the music and get them to hear it almost passively. And there's lots of different ways we can monetize around this. So the first one we're going to look at is YouTube and YouTube ads. Now, I imagine the majority of you will be familiar with YouTube ads. When you play a video on YouTube, you sometimes get an ad before it, during the video, and even sometimes at the bottom there are featured products. All of those things constitute YouTube advertising, and that does bring revenue. So the way I do this is I will create some kind of a valuable video. It's potentially how you initially found out about me. And that video will provide something of use for you, whether it teaches you a technique or answers a simple question for you. And in that video, I will usually feature music that I have yet to release. Now, obviously, as the video ages, that's the music that is out there and available. The plus side of this is I've got that track and interest in that track being listened to. And the person didn't come specifically to listen to it. They came to get some value around it first. By doing that, if they enjoy that piece of music, they've got an inherent interest that they made the decision for. It wasn't marketed or pushed to them, which makes it a lot easier. In that process of doing that regularly, you can build up revenue from YouTube. Now, YouTube for me makes around $250 to $300 a month at the moment. And I had a child recently, and in that time, I actually took 8 weeks off. We had a really difficult period, and in that time, this didn't slow down because there's so much energy behind it already, and it provides value to around 70 to 100,000 people each month. It just kept rolling over. So I could stop YouTube now, and I know for sort of 6 months or so, it would just keep generating that money each month. Now, for you to achieve this, we need to get to 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 minutes of watch time, which actually isn't massively hard to do. The 1,000 subscriber thing, if you're providing value for people, you can achieve that in a matter of weeks. You can definitely do it within a year of just putting, say, one video out a week. So it's a progressive thing that builds up over time. But like I've just said, now I could stop and it would still be generating me income. You sort of put the work in first, you build up a big surplus, and then that trickles out. It's kind of like putting the pressure behind a dam, and the dam lets it all trickle out over time for you. Really, really good way to go. But YouTube ads do have a downside. So YouTube ads have a really small margin, meaning they pay less than a Spotify stream in general. But the plus side is works completely on autopilot. Someone looks for a solution to a question, they find my video, they click on it, I generate income. They listen to my music, that's awesome. They then may check me out on Spotify, follow me on other platforms, or watch another video. And that involve nothing from me apart from the pre-work of building up a quick video on whatever subject it could be. What YouTube is also absolutely incredible for is tie-ins. Now, I'll mention tie-ins a few times in this lecture, but essentially what they mean is you can tie in other products, other offers, other services. So for example, I do lots of videos with a company called Waves, and I tie in Waves plugins with what I'm doing. So it means that I can get paid to make the video, I can get paid when the video is watched, I can expose people to my music, and it can be a benefit for Waves. And we can have a look for why that's useful as we go through the other methods of income generation here. So our next one is SOUNDCLOUD-ADS. Now, this will be interesting to a lot of you. I imagine most of you don't really know that you can actually generate income via SoundCloud. Now, I do this. It generates very small amounts for me, literally like as much as $1 a month. But in the 3 years I've been doing it, hey, you know, there's like $100 or so that I wouldn't have had before, going across the different accounts I have. Now, to do this, we need an aggregator, and provided in this lecture, there will be a set of aggregators and things for the different services that we can look at. But once we're set up with that aggregator, when someone goes to play our track on SoundCloud, sometimes they'll get played an ad and it gets collected. Now, another downside of this is it's very, very, very small margins. You'll be getting tiny, tiny volume. Even if you're getting millions of plays, this will be much, much less than something like Spotify. However, it requires little to no effort. Building up a SoundCloud following, you can literally just post music on SoundCloud and let it do its thing. There's not much in terms of discovery, but as long as you post to blogs and you link back to your music and you maybe tie in with YouTube with your SoundCloud links, there's a way there you can get paid twice straight away. So it requires very little effort to do, and you'd be insane to not set it up and not tie it in with everything else. Then we've got PPL and PRS. Now, these services vary from different countries. Check the documentation if you're in the USA or Canada, and I'll have the different companies listed out for you there. But the service they provide is generally the same. So they will collect performance royalties. This means if your track is being regularly played or performed in nightclubs, for example, where things aren't generally tracked, some places will actually track the tracks that were played in their venue. This can account for things like gyms and other places that have paid for music royalty licenses as well. They perform all the collection for that, and then they algorithmically essentially work out how regularly your song's been played in certain areas and venues, and they dish out payment for that. This can be quite lucrative, especially if you get featured in something like a gym. If there's a brand gym that play the same playlist across all of their gyms, it can work out very well for you. If you've got DJs playing your tracks as well, that can also work out very nicely for you. Now, these also collect airplay royalties. Airplay being radio play generally, also includes internet airplay as well. And they will collect that based on the ISRC codes that you provide from your track. That will be logged every time that airplay has occurred. And depending on the station, number of listeners, time of day, there'll be a fee associated with your track being played. They collect that and they'll send you a check or bank transfer every single month. So if you're pushing your music in that sort of area, even if you're performing it live, you should be listed to do this, because you can claim your own live performances. You can go into the PRS system, log the performance of your particular tracks at a particular venue, particular time, and you will get paid for those live performance royalties. So streaming, here we've got Spotify and Apple Music. You will know that there are a host more as well. Now, really, really easy to get into, very, very low cost of entry for your fans, which is why this is really, really useful. So remember when we talked about tie-ins with YouTube and how I use my tracks that maybe haven't been released initially when the video goes out, but eventually they will be. I can just put a Spotify link in there. If you liked this part of the track, you can listen to the whole thing here. Now, low cost of entry for fans. In the case of Spotify, it's completely free. They can listen to that track in its entirety for zero cost whatsoever. And if they've already got a membership of some kind to say Apple Music or Spotify, which is only around $10 a month, it's a very low cost of entry. And it again costs them nothing to listen to that track that they enjoyed part of, that they already listened to. And again, it's a way that you can get paid again on the cycle. Once they've listened to you on the platform, it's likely that they're going to follow you and also become aware of any of your new releases, which is really useful. The reason you should be on streaming platforms is the gigantic number of people. This is the majority way that music is consumed in 2019. There's no argument. This is how music is consumed now. Now, the downside is the low payout per plays. However, it is considerably higher at the minute than YouTube or SoundCloud or some of the other methods out there. And to be honest, through streaming alone, I generate between $100 to $250 per month. Now, it works on a 90-day cycle, so I can see towards the end of last year now, and it went pretty well, to be honest. I think my last payout was $200. So when we tie that in with YouTube, and that YouTube brings me a lot of that traffic, there is around $500 a month there from YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music without me actually really doing any promotion. It's all the cycle working on autopilot. We can bring in the extra $2 to $3 or so from SoundCloud, and then any PRS and PPL as well. And it starts to build up quite a lot, right? How everything sort of ties in together. Next way we can do it is download sales. Now, there's a few ways to do this. We can again use an aggregator to get on stores like Beatport and iTunes, and we get a much better payout for this. If I sell a track on iTunes, I'll generally receive about 60 pence, depending on the country it was sold in. For example, I have quite a few fans in the Netherlands. That pays out a little bit more. I have quite a few fans in Mexico, and that pays out quite a bit less, but it works out on average around 60 pence. Downside is currently this method is declining. As we talked about at the start, downloads are now no longer really the focus. People go for the streaming option instead. But this is really easy to do independently. So if you were to go to my website, which is www.warriorsound.co.uk/downloads, you will see that there is my music and music from artists I've produced available to be purchased directly from the site. Now, in that case, there is no cut from the aggregator. I receive the full amount, and I'm able to push those links as much as I want and bring people into my ecosystem on my website. Equally, we could use things like Bandcamp as well, which allow us to do the similar thing. The only downside to Bandcamp is they will keep a lot of the customer details, meaning that you can't reach out to your customers again in the future. But download sales are absolutely still a viable way to make some income. And the people who are going to buy these are going to be, like we suggested earlier, DJs and things like that who want to play your music out or use it for other sources. Equally, you might build up a group of super fans as you go through this process of building up a bigger and bigger network who simply want to have something purchased from you and help support you. This moves us on to custom merch, talking about fans and having everything supported and a nice little cycle going on. Now, the reason I stopped my merch line last year was because when I had my daughter, it was overly time consuming for me. However, it was profitable, but I couldn't keep up with everything required. Now, I would suggest that you're going to focus on particular areas of these to really help you generate income. If you're going to go into merch, you need to make sure that you've got a good audience, that your merch is good, and that you've got the time to fulfill it, or that you're at the point where you can hire someone to do a lot of the processing for you. Now, there are absolutely ways to have it completely automated. The logo up there is a company called Printful. Printful will allow an order to come in, they'll manufacture it and they'll ship it. However, when you start doing this in bulk and it becomes profitable, because they will charge you quite a bit extra for all of those services, which is something you could do yourself, you will still get returns. Returns come to you. You will get payment issues. Payment issues come to you. You will get queries about certain things with like material and what print type is, and that the color is slightly different. All of these things end up coming back to you, and it became too time consuming for me to keep on top of. Even though it was turning a small profit, the time involved was not enough. However, if I had had the time to keep pushing into this, and I absolutely will, because I still have all of the assets I created and all of the custom clothing designs that were created, it could be very, very profitable. If you are an artist who goes out and performs live, you should absolutely have merch pre-made. Now, this does incur some kind of upfront cost. However, someone who's just seen you perform and enjoyed your performance is much more likely to want to buy merch from you, and custom merch can include a disc as well. And it's a really good way to build your brand and build a relationship as well. And you don't really have to do anything in terms of a sale, but you may have to get someone to man your merch stand, if you will, while you're performing. Sample packs. So sample packs are an ever-growing thing in people who want to produce and create music. They want to be able to have the sounds of some of their favorite artists and create similar things to them. Remember, we were talking about the niches and micro niches? Well, if I've got a lot of drum and bass fans, and I know that a small percent of those are likely going to be also making music, that's how they got involved with me, I can provide a sample pack to them, which I already do. And again, you can go to warriorsound.co.uk and see those. And I can make these really, really, really easily. So if you've already got music made, it is as simple as going into your tracks and taking small sections. So in my case, I have a soulful drum and bass free pack that contains a lot of the breaks from some of my older releases, little loops of the bass lines, some of the impact sounds I made and recorded. This can be sold really, really simply, and you can do it yourself. So much like how I sell digital music, I can sell sample packs as well. So I do this a couple of ways. I have the warriorsound.co.uk website, which has a couple of sample packs on it. And I also have Warrior Sound Beats, which has different style of sample packs on it aimed at a different market. The other way we can do this is we can partner up with some other companies. I'll provide you in the document a list of companies that you could reach out to. For example, my friend Adam, aka Multiplier, he works with Loop Masters and Splice regularly, producing sample packs for them. They then take control of the releasing, distribution and sale, and he gets a cut back rather than doing the whole thing himself. This can really help on control and maintaining your own personal time, but still generating an income by using something that you've already created. Bit of a downside is there's lots of broad competition here. Just about every genre and style of music and sample pack is already created. But where this works is where you've built a real tight network of the people who enjoy your particular sound. They will be really interested in buying this, and anyone else who comes into your music ecosphere will also be really interested in this. That's where selling it yourself can be really useful. Equally, if you provide it on something like Splice, people can take just one individual sample from a pack and you're paid per sample downloaded. That can also work really well to break the competition cycle. Instrumentals, and by this I mean instrumental versions of your track. Now, plus side is they're really easy to add to your portfolio of music. Something that I will often do is release a full track and as a B-side have an instrumental version. If somebody enjoys the original track, they may well enjoy the instrumental version as well. That's instantly generated another play. If only 20% of people do that, that's an extra 20 plays for each 100 people that discovered my track. other useful thing is instrumentals have multiple ways of being monetized. They can also be sold as instrumentals, and they can also be used in something we're going to look at earlier. And they can also be used in something we're going to look at later called sync licensing. What it does require is a little bit of persistence for them to become useful. We can just tag them on to single releases and pick up the odd play here, but if we want to regularly be generating income from instrumentals, from sync licensing or selling the rights to them, it requires a lot of persistence to get a culture of people who are willing to do that. If you want an idea of how big and important this actually is, check out the website beatstars.com. There are hundreds and thousands of beats uploaded there each year, and they are instrumental tracks that people are purchasing to use in TV shows, in film, or to create their own music over. It is a huge, huge market. There's nothing to stop you producing a full track of your own, releasing it, and then providing an instrumental version for someone else to do the same thing. My favorite example of this ever is Dr. Dre, and years ago, Sean Paul and Blue Cantrell released a new #1 hit over the same beat that Dr. Dre produced and used on 2001. So it's completely a viable option, and it happens regularly. So talking about sync licensing for instrumentals, what does sync licensing mean? Okay, so when music appears on TV and adverts, that is a sync license. So what it essentially means is it's being synced to video, and it requires a sync license. There are many companies that will do this for you, okay? Lots and lots of different networks, companies, advert providers use different sync libraries. Appearing on one may help you reach, say, BBC in the UK, but no one else. So it's great to appear on as many as possible. It does require some research for you in what's best. Another really great way to get sync licenses is to be very interested in the people who may benefit or need your style of music. If you're aware that there's a particular show that uses your type of music, if you happen to see that season 3 is being filmed right now, you need to try and reach out to the sound designer for that and or his team and see if you can get your sync licensing going in that. Now, throughout the course, we'll go a little bit deeper into this so you can look at the different areas and different ways to do it. Again, with the document, I'll provide you a couple of places that you can look at sync licensing and getting your music in there. Now, amazing potential. It's got great potential for long-term income. If you think that the guys who did the theme tune for Big Bang Theory, every single time that is played, they get paid. And it is played around the planet 24/7 for the last 10 years. But the risk is, when they initially did that, it might have gone nowhere. So it has potential for incredible long-term income, but it also has the potential to flop. It pays very, very well when it does pay. This one might seem obvious, but performances. So you can get paid to perform your music. As you build an audience, venues will actually be pretty happy for you to come and perform your music because you're likely going to bring some of that audience in with you. Now, some downsides, it's not suitable for everyone. For example, myself, I haven't done a live performance since I think 2015 because I used to DJ and it just hasn't become a thing that I've been able to practice at the minute. I've got so much other work on, it's just taken a fall to the wayside. But if DJing is one of your final goals, performance is absolutely something you should be putting into. If performing on stage is one of your final goals, you should be also putting as much of your energy as you can into that. Whether you're performing to 1 or 2 people, this is how audiences are grown, one person at a time. Now, some downsides, it's very time consuming to travel to venues, reach out to venues, and practice your performance so that it is amazing each time. However, if you put all this extra work in, again, we can tie things in. So it's an amazing opportunity to sell merch as well. A equally, as well as to promote yourself in your other areas and get people interested in perhaps streaming your music once that has ended. And maybe to get people interested in streaming your music once that performance has ended. So sponsorships. Sponsorships is something that I do quite a lot. And this is where a brand will sponsor you to create a piece of music or a piece of content, or a piece of content around a piece of music around their product. And it's absolutely a really great viable way. If you look at my YouTube channel, you will see that some of those videos have got sponsors around them, and you can generally tell which ones that has been. I do not sell my opinion. You could if you wanted to, but it's just not something that I'm willing to do. So I get many offers where I will turn it down because I don't feel that, in my case, I do a lot of digital audio plugins. I don't feel that they are great. And sometimes if they persist, I will just simply give a negative review and opinion on that. Have a look at the Slam Dog one that I did, for example. They're a very lucrative and profitable way to monetize your music. And as well, because they can do tie-ins so well with YouTube, which ties into Spotify, which can tie into sample pack downloads and just build a whole new cycle of awareness, they are very much worth doing. If you can get the upfront cost paid before you've even had to produce a video, you're in really good stead. Now, a downside here is sometimes there are T's and C's or an NDA. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, and they can be quite awkward to work with sometimes, although you generally get used to it and you generally get used to the T's and C's and NDAs and not being able to talk about certain things. It can sometimes affect release schedules. So if there's a T and C and a NDA in place and you were planning to put a piece of content out and then there's a 3-month delay, you are stuck in that 3-month delay. It is unfortunate, it happens, but you have still been paid. And if you're anything like me, you'll just continuously be putting more and more work into your pipeline. So when these things happen, it's just a case of a quick reshuffle and you've still got something else to go at that time. These can reoccur regularly as well once they've happened and you've delivered well once or twice for a company, to the point now that it's a very viable option for myself with multiple companies. And I can equally reach out to them, go, hey, I've seen this. I want to provide this value to you around this. What can we do? We've worked together before and something will usually come of it. Sponsorships are an excellent way. You'll see this a lot with bands who perform live by having, say, a banner for example, Jack Daniels, Smirnoff vodka, various other beers that will sponsor the live performance of that band to have their brand portrayed with them as well. Sponsorships, excellent way to go around your music. Affiliates. So this ties in nicely with sponsorships as well. And I will usually get an affiliate relationship with a sponsorship deal. What that means essentially is any sales that come out from the sponsorship and the work we put in together, we get a cut of. So for example, if I produce a video to show a particular plugin and that video drives traffic and sales to their website, I will get a percentage of all of those sales. So I've been paid for the video. There was an advert on the video that also paid me. And then the video enticed a sale, which also paid me. And then the person also liked my music, so they followed me on Spotify, which also paid me. Do you see how we've built up 4 or 5 different income streams all around one small area? This is incredibly important. So this is how affiliates work. What else is useful? They will often provide you with some kind of support. So I will often find that my affiliate partners and sponsorships will share any work I've created. They're not just there expecting you to do everything. They like to have extra content and people talking about it, and they will reshare on Twitter via their profiles. In turn, building more people into your cycle as well. These provide regular income. I get paid monthly from a number of affiliates, and I do very nicely from that. And you increase profits over time. So when I first started, I think 2016, my biggest month for affiliates was, I think, £79. Not great. At the start of this year, 2019, it was about £1,000 just for that month from affiliates, which was great. It's a full-time income just from that. Now, crowdfunding is incredibly useful as well. I have yet to build a crowdfunding campaign simply because I haven't needed to, but it's something I keep looking at and thinking I really should do. It's incredibly low risk. So you can build a crowdfunding campaign knowing that it's not really going to cost you anything apart from some time and promotion. It can yield incredibly huge sums. I've seen bands build excess of £100,000 on, say, Indiegogo, and a really small drum and bass artist called BC managed to get 12 grand for an album as well, which is also just really interesting to see how people are able to support. You can also use it to bring a lot of new people in as a discovery mechanism, because you can have a nice introduction, what you're about, what I've done in the past on there, in a way that people can be interested. And the downside is more fail than succeed, but there's absolutely no reason that you shouldn't try. It's absolutely a way that you can get something funded before you go and create it, which is a really, really important thing. I do essentially this, but via YouTube, and I make sure I get everything funded like in little chunks and my music's profitable before it goes out. This is an alternate way to do that, but you could absolutely do it in conjunction with. Later on in this course, I'm going to actually look at building my own, and we're going to go over how and why I've chosen a particular platform, and we're going to track it and see how it goes as well. Another way we can do this is freelancer sites. So here we're into utilizing your skills as a musician and maybe freelancing out some of those skills. What's really useful here when we use particular sites, something like Fiverr or Upwork, is they're going to send leads and work to you. You have to build out a nice page and portfolio and proof of concept, but they will provide you with people. And that's really useful because it takes advertising costs and sort of your buy-in expense and reduces it down massively. Unfortunately, it can be kind of low quality leads. What I mean by low quality lead is you'll have someone with much higher expectations than you're going to deliver at the price point that is being illustrated by the particular freelancer site. Equally, the buyer is much more protected than you are. So if you were to take your time, produce a piece of content, and the buyer is not happy with that, they will get their money back via that platform regardless of your work. There are many people who make a superb living this way, and some websites are absolutely better than others. Upwork, for example, has a much better reputation than Fiverr. But it is a viable option. It's something to consider, especially if you've got a skill that you could outsource regularly. Really simple one is I use vocalists quite a lot, and I will hire freelance vocalists quite often. There's a site I go to that's really great for hiring those. But you might have a specific thing that you're superb at that you can freelance out, will only take a little bit of your time each week and help you generate new fans and income. So, songwriting. What I mean by songwriting is the actual written notation and lyrics of a song, and you can sell that to other people. Now, it's incredibly hard to establish yourself as a successful songwriter without a successful song being written. There are many artists out there who used to write for other artists, had success with them, and then took themselves into being successful artists. This was their start out into the industry. So it becomes hard to establish, and with it being hard to establish, it's hard to charge good rate. However, you might be charging small amounts, enough to cover the cost of time involved. However, once you've done that, if you have a successful track, despite your small initial income, you hopefully would have negotiated to keep a lot of the performance rights. You won't have any of the mechanical rights, but you can absolutely retain a percentage of the performance rights. Now, The artist Peter Gabriel, this is how he makes the phenomenal amount of money he does, by writing really popular pop songs and then maintaining 50% of those rights. When the song blows up and gets into, say, in our case, the UK top 10, he makes 50% of that performance writer's income for something he wrote and charged for at the time. So if you're really good at songwriting, this is absolutely something you can do. And to rewind one step, there's no reason that you couldn't do this via a freelancer site if you don't have people to network with and sell to at this point. Equally, to get other people interested in your music, use your music as your portfolio. People who are interested in those particular types of songs and performance will likely have a similar taste in music. If they then enjoy your music, at the very least, if you don't get a songwriting contract out of them, you've gained a new fan. Ghost production, little something that I have dabbled in now and then when I've been asked. Again, really hard to establish authority and charge in this, but your work generally is going to prove what you are able to do and be capable of. There are some legal issues that absolutely come into this. Like with some sponsorships, we'll have NDAs to deal with, meaning we can never disclose that we produced a particular track. There are many EDM artists out there who use ghost producers, and some of them aren't even particularly hiding it. There have been a few, let's say, faux pas where they've come out to do a breakdown of a track and they don't even know how the track was actually made, or they've got a quote unquote engineer there with them to help them break down that particular track. This is a sort of big seedy underground business, but it's very, very, very lucrative. The thing that makes it difficult is you can ghost produce a track that has a bit of success, but you can't ever use that as a selling point, so you're almost always starting from scratch. There are, however, some companies who hire in ghost producers, and I'll put those in the document for you as well. If this is something you wanted to look at getting into, you could absolutely approach some of those companies first, but they would expect you to have a very high level portfolio. Teaching and skills. So this is something that I do all the time. This generates me around £700 a month, and I do it 2 days a week. Really, really simple. Cost of entry is basically zero because you're just reteaching skills that you already have. And it's pretty easy to source students. Anyone who's got an interest in the area of what you do is a potential client and student for you. You just need to approach them and talk to them. And to be honest, you can pick them up from Facebook, friends of friends, work colleagues. Really, really simple. Once you've established yourself and you've got a couple of people happy with what you're doing and they're showing progress, it's regular income once you're established this way, and you can just be teaching on the regular as a little bit of side income. For example, I teach a lot of music production skill and techniques. If you can play guitar, you can teach guitar, piano, music theory, marketing, anything you like around what you know and do, and one of those skills that you need to build and develop to get to your final goal. We're at books and ebooks now. So writing, recording, editing, producing, putting out music, playing music, teaching, they're all incredibly useful skills. And you can put that information into a book, or if you want a zero upfront cost of entry, an ebook. And you can distribute an ebook yourself very, very easily via your own website. And it's not that difficult to get them onto things like Kindle either. Producing an actual physical book has a bit of upfront cost, and you will need to get a publisher involved more than likely. Even if you wish to self-publish, you'll probably be paying for that. But it's an incredible way to, one, sell something to people who are already interested in what you do and want to learn a bit more. Many people learn well by reading books. And this makes it an amazing lead generator as well, because if it's a subject that people are interested in and people enjoy and are reading your book, people who have never heard of you will pick up this book and will read it. You have more than likely picked up and read something from someone you didn't know at some point and become interested in them as a person, the other things they do, or even the music they produce. I think a really interesting case study of this at the moment is Curtis King. He's a relatively big YouTuber who's exploded, started a year or two before myself, but dwarfs me in terms of subscribers. And he went and released a book and ebook, and it sold incredibly well, but has also helped expand and build his brand. And it's done well enough that it's available in bookstores around the US. It's been an incredibly good move for him, and it's all around how he became the music producer he is today. There's no reason that you haven't got a big enough story to put something like this into the world. It could even be a short ebook about how you learnt to play an instrument. People will be interested in that. They love the story and education of how somebody else achieved something. Podcasting. This is almost what I'm doing with you guys now, but we're doing it in a course format. Sit down, talk into a mic. The cost of entry is absolutely tiny. You can do this if you've got a mobile phone with a half decent microphone in it. You can record it via an iPhone free into something like GarageBand and distribute it as a podcast. Podcasts have a huge growing audience. So the podcast I put out with Multiplier last year, that was getting around 2,000 people each month listening to it while we were able to do it. Again, unfortunately, due to time constrictions, I had to pull it, but it is coming back this year. It's also incredible for tie-ins. You can provide links to services that you've talked about in a podcast. We can then link in affiliates. We can also gain in with sponsors. It's incredibly good for building an audience and authority around what you're doing as well. Naturally, we've gone from books to podcasting to audiobooks. Now, again, really small cost of entry. You could actually record it on a phone and have it be of decent enough quality. I've certainly listened to audiobooks that are not particularly well recorded, but I've still taken a lot of great info from. Again, these are growing in popularity. People are buying more and more from places like Audible and the iBook store. If people were interested in your book, there will be a group of people, and they're going to be a group of people like me who don't have the time and or struggle to read and much prefer the audiobook experience. If you've already written your book or ebook and or your podcasting, creating an audiobook will be really easy for you. It's just an option that you should absolutely execute on if you've already done those areas. You can create an audiobook about the experience of creating your album. People will absolutely be interested in this. Now we've got blogging. WARRIORSOUND.co.uk started as a blog. Tiny cost of entry, requires a few minutes to write each day or each week. And you can recycle other content. So if you go over to WARRIORSOUND.co.uk and hit on blog, you will notice that my YouTube videos feature in the blog and have a write-up about what contained in the video. And then we've got any other tie-ins with any companies or sponsors all on that page. It's excellent for SEO, which is search engine optimization. People looking for particular answers who maybe don't land on my YouTube video may well land on my blog for the same answer and be able to read it and or watch the video and or become interested in my brand. For example, the little WARRIORSOUND.co.uk website that currently gets around 300 blog readers a month, and lots of those will then tie into my YouTube channel and other areas. Cool. So for the couple of you who are still watching, I should be up on the screen for you now. Hopefully that was of some use to you, and that is potentially 21 different ways that you can monetize around your music based on your skills or even the music itself, and just build like an ecosystem that ties in and around itself. So, you can get a video out that's paid for, that promotes a new piece of music, that helps sell the music, that builds your Spotify library, that gets people onto your email list, that helps people download your sample pack. It just all feeds into itself. You need to sort of take all 21 and work out which ones are going to work for you and put them all together. Now, there's been a few questions. What have we got question-wise? Tony, so Yeah, so when I put music out, it's under unders. I also release under Warrior Sound. There's a couple of other like artist groups that I work with as well. Put those together and produce with those. And there's some people I produce for and I release for them as well. Dan, I don't know what you mean with I'm not getting money for it, but that's fine. If you want to clarify, if you're still here, let me know. No worries. So Pete, if you're on my email list, I'll probably drop the replay out to the email list. No worries, you can catch that there. Cool, thank you, Benjamin. If you guys got any questions while I am sat here for a little while and we can have a bit of a chat over it. So I was going to start going through, because obviously you probably figured out that this is a small part of a much bigger thing. I've put a huge course together. And there's a couple of links I've thrown together. So if we jump over to here, at warriorsound.co.uk, I've launched the beta of the course as of today. So this is actually one video out of 7 different modules over 90 days. So it's a lot of content to take in, but this is just sort of scratching the surface on that. So you can head on over to there and have a look through the course curriculum if you want. Some of the things that we covered, so like part 1, we look at defining your own niche, how you can sort of clarify yourself rather than try and market yourself to the whole of, say, dance music, for example, which just doesn't work. You need to really niche yourself down. And in some areas, niche that down even smaller. So you're literally appealing to a few 100,000 people, because globally, if you were to take all of the fans of dance, it's going to be a monumental amount, and most of them are not going to have interest in what you're after. So it's really how to define that and make sure you reach the right people each time. Part 2, we then look at like planning out a project. So reaching out to get everything ready for recording a track, getting it all together, getting promotion together, reaching out to certain businesses, like your tactics for releasing a single and promoting it. And part 3, we move on to like defining content and niche, launching the music content, monetizing factors and how you can monetize a track in different ways, how to promote it on launch day to make sure you get maximum impact, an actual content launch around the music. If any of the guys watching are followers of this channel, like there's been lots of music happening in different videos that's got interest of like blog readers and other things. If you have a look at the Waves CLA video, for example, there's a couple of people in there really interested in the track. It's coming out later this year. There's a video being filmed for it, but I've already got momentum and interest in it. So it's just the smart way to work it. We look at how we can do that and promote it. And that is literally just the first 2 weeks of it. So it just progresses and progresses from there, getting more and more in depth. It's expensive at the end of the day. So the course, like it's an extensive course, and it is priced up at $997. But there's some bonuses that come with it as well. So we've got the advanced YouTube tactics. So that is essentially what I do here and how I use this tiny little channel with like 5,000 of you guys following. But you'll notice some of my videos have like 70,000, 16,000, 20,000 views, way reaching beyond what I should be. I'll show you guys how to do that as well. Obviously can't do my numbers right, so we've got 2 bonus 3, but crowdfunding breakdown. So I've gone through all of the crowdfunding sources and broken those down to figure out what's going to be the best ones to use, because like I said before, I'm looking at doing that as well. And I think towards the end of this year, I'm going to crowdfund for the following year and see how that builds up. And then you've got direct support from myself and the growing team in a private group. So again, if you follow the channel, you would have seen some other faces cropping up here and there because I'm so busy to the point I'm getting other people involved in Warrior Sound now. But we'll be there in a private group to help you basically make this journey. So altogether, that price is up at $2,388, which is crazy money. But it's a beta, so I didn't want to reach out to you guys and say that's how much it needs to be. It's just far too expensive. So the actual cost that I've priced it up at is $957. However, while it's in beta, I've actually dropped it down to $607. I'll hold that open for a little while, and it's only open to guys who are like joining these live streams, subscribers and things like that. But eventually it's going to have to go back to the 957 because it's not really viable for me to keep it at the 607 like price point. It costs a lot to run, takes a lot of time, but I think it's the right thing to do. Sort of like the theory of what a rising tide lifts all ships, right? If we get enough people involved and I can get you guys in a position where you can do this with your music and start making a living, it supports me just as much as it does you. So I think it's worth doing that. Like I said, you got any questions, throw them in the chat box and we will just go through those. And if not, I'm going to fade out in the next couple of minutes. No? Okay, cool. So guys, I'll leave that up. If you have got any questions or you want to see the replay, make sure you jump on the mail list, head over to warriorsound.co.uk, you'll be able to jump on it from there, or warriorsound.pro, and I've got a free course there on Logic that you might want to jump on as well. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you got some use out of it. Like I said, any questions, just reach out. What exactly do I teach in the course or in general? In the course, it's really covering all the different ways that you can monetize and the processes to go through how to do it. So a really good one is reaching out to businesses and the correct way to do that and provide value for them. Something a lot of people go in with the mindset of from what they can get from a business, but that's not going to sell it to them. You really need to go in with the concept of, hey, this is what I can do for you and this is the result I can provide for you, and not really ever lead in with what you're after until you're at a point that you've sold them on the idea. Lots and lots of little things like that, and how I managed to maintain a solid living working from home and doing what I want. Cool. So I teach, well, the teaching contract that I have is like 2 days a week and it pays me about 12 grand a year. It's teaching production and software, essentially Logic, GarageBand and other areas to staff of some companies, teachers, other students as well, like groups and youth clubs, things like that. And I just teach the real basics, like fundamentals of music production to groups of like 15 to 20. Cool. Thank you very much, guys.
Do you remember old school?